Alright, so we are going to make the crazy patchwork cushion. It's actually really, really easy to do. I kind of love the quirkiness of it, and I love this sort of starting point here. So it's just a case of building up the layers. So it's going to come together actually quite easily. So if we look on the overhead, now I know you guys sometimes say that my overhead's a bit dodgy. Well, you know what, I know what you're saying. So we'll do our best. I'll use my mouse as a rest. So obviously we've got the pattern, we've printed it off. Now you know at the back, before this bit, so pages 8 and 9, you've got the pattern. I'm going to reach it, but which I've cut mine up, you see. So you've got the pattern here, which has the sort of what would you call it? Irregular shape. So it's that shape. I've already cut mine out. So you've got the irregular shape on this part here. So we can just get rid of that. And then on this one, you've got the dragonfly bits. Now, obviously, you can use that as a pattern if you. First of all, it tells you how to lay the pieces down. But secondly, also allows you to trace this off and perhaps do a plique on this or machine embroidery, but it gives you the idea. And then obviously my bits were here, and I cut those out, and they're just here. And this time, because sometimes I use Bondaware and print onto my Bondaware, but this time I cut them all out, and I just drew round them. So let's get rid of that. So I just drew round them, and I drew them straight onto my fabric. So this is the fabric I'm going to use, and so let me just talk you through this. So this is just regular cotton fabric, and it's put onto the back of the sticky side of my H250. You know, that's my stabiliser that I always use. So in effect, this is the glue here. So I've glued this fabric onto this stabiliser, and this stabiliser and this whole piece has been spray adhesive. I use obviously my stick and spray. Spray adhesive glued onto this wash away webbing, and then I put it into a hoop. So that allows me to do my free motion embroidery on there and just sort of a nice bit of general stitching. So that's my layer. So it's a wash away webbing, it's my H250, it's my fabric down onto this gluey side of my H250, and then I've literally drew around the shapes, you know, the wings and the body there. So that's how I do that, and then that goes under my machine. And if you notice, it goes the opposite way. So this is not standing proud. It's gone in here. Look, you can see if I tip it like that, you'll be able to see it's gone into the hoop. And it's almost like you put everything upside down, and that's how you embroider in the hoop on your machine. And it's great fun. And we've done it before with the dragonfly, but it was my favourite. And in actual fact, I had it planned for this project anyway. So I kind of brought it forward when we did the napkin ring, because I couldn't resist. You know what I'm like, get too excited. So that's that. So what you'll see here is that first of all, you're going to cut out your irregular shape here. You're going to gather together some of your scraps. I obviously use the denim. I've got different colours tonight. And then with your scraps, you're just going to cut varying widths. So I think 1 inch is the smallest. You could go up to 2.5, 3 inches even with your scraps. So cut as many as you like, as you think you'll need. And then what we're going to do is fold your calico piece into thirds. So you end up with 9 squares like this, and you just place your piece in the corner, in that cross section there, if you like, onto your pattern. I'll show you that, and then you start building up. So if we do that straight away, so this is the piece that has to be 18.5 by 14.5. Okay, so it's a fair old piece of calico. Let me just move that out of the way now. So what we're going to do is fold it into thirds. So, and it's kind of like a bit of guesswork. You know what? Please don't measure. Oh my gosh, don't measure. But fold it back on itself like that. And this won't be perfect thirds, but it's just kind of like a rough guide. So that's into 1/3, and then we're going to kind of fold it like that, and that should give us, and really all you want is a kind of a grid. Now you could put wadding under this if you want to. I have chosen not to, but it's entirely up to you. If you want to make it a little bit more puffy, then you can. So I don't know if you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and just choose one of those crosses here if you like to put your first piece, which is this piece. Now I always use my stick and spray just to first of all hold the pattern piece, but also just to pop that down on there. Now I would say try not to have a straight edge, so you know what I mean by a parallel edge, let's say. So do you see those two edges are parallel with here and the other side, which you can't see, but it's over here. Let's move that, oops, in, out a little bit. Let's go like that. So if I kept it like that, it would be pretty boring, because our strips on this side would end up being really regimented, and sometimes they end up like that anyway. But so if you can, just sort of turn it at a quirky angle, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, we could do it that way if you like. It really doesn't matter. But then just once you've got it in place, just pop a couple of pins in, or you could use some spray adhesive again just to hold that in place. And obviously you want to be careful you don't actually stitch on these pins, so just watch out with that. And I think you know what, there's no rules, and also it doesn't matter which one you start with. I mean, in my picture, I think I've started with this one here. In fact, I've got it placed almost identically. But it's up to you where you place the first one. So my fabrics are here. Look, and a right collection of sort of turquoisey blues and greens. It's quite nice, isn't it? So I've got a bit of batik in here as well. I've got some really sort of more, let's say, affordable cotton. I don't know where I got it from, but it's not the best of quality. This is gorgeous. I think that might be Macau. I might be completely wrong. And also I've got some linear in there as well. So a nice assortment. And also the widths are different. Look, you can see the widths are all different. The lengths are all different as well. So, you know, there's no rules here. Just cut a load of strips. And if you do have some spare, you could always make a little coaster or a little pin cushion. I mean, you know, nothing goes to waste, does it? So if I just pick one of these out, I haven't really thought about. So you could go light to dark and dark to light, that sort of thing. You know, you could start off with a piece that's really light here, let's say, and then you could work out to go to dark right on your edges, or the other way around, you could start with dark and then work out. But it's supposed to be a crazy piece of patchwork, and so there it is. It's crazy. So the first one we'll do this one. So the first one we're going to do is this side here. So we've got a massive piece here, but I don't want you to cut anything. I'm going to switch my iron on if I can get to it without. I was going to say burning myself. I haven't switched it on yet. It's going to be that sort of evening. And so all you're going to do is edge to edge, so right sides together, and you're going to stitch along there. Now you're stitching on top of the piece that is your marker, if you like. So but you want to see where the end of that seam is, and if you want to, just make a little mark there so you know where the end of that seam is, you know, the end of that piece is. That's you there and there. But I think by the time you start stitching, it's going to, you know, you'll work it out. Now what I want you to do is just go a little bit further over each end. This one I don't want you to cut at all for the moment, but this one I want you to go, I mean, I've gone about 1/4 of an inch. Let me bring that in and move that so you can see. So if you remember, that's the bit I marked, and I've just, if I whip it away, I'm going to go put my piece over, and that's just in case that when I flip it back, it doesn't, because you see the next one is this, and that piece of fabric is going to go parallel with that line. I'm going to ignore that bit, and so I want now my next piece to cover all of that fabric. Do you see? But we'll see how it is as we go along. I think that's probably the best thing to do. So I'll overhang it by about 1/4 of an inch, and I'll just put my pins in just to hold it down. And I'm going to be really good. I'm going to try and iron between each strip, because it does make a difference. So look, I'm just going to come to this end here. I know it's a bit dark, but that's the best I can do. So we just got about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm just going to keep my pin there for a moment, and there we go. Oh, I've dropped it. There we go. There it is. And so I'm not going to trim that end off, okay? I'm just going to go as far as I can there. Now, if you overstep that seam, so I'm just going to have a quick look. If you overstep the seam, so if you overstep that edge, don't worry, you can always snip that back, and it shouldn't make a lot of difference. So we're going to just keep stitching our layers. Now, even though we've got this one here already attached, all we're going to do is flip that one over. Do you see how this works? Now I'm going to do I'm going to do another one, and then excuse me, then I'm going to go to the front camera so that I can get my iron in, and I can be a good girl and iron all my pieces. So I just wanted you to understand the principles of this. So let me just snip some of this away. Now you'll think I'm being really wasteful. I wish I've got my other scissors, where are they? But the thing is, you need to have a long tail, like I said before. No, I must have left the scissors somewhere else. You need to have a long tail, because when you flip this back, you want to make sure that your next piece easily covers that. And when you do your next piece, you're always following this raw edge. So, okay? And as you build up, it's always the raw edge, and you kind of go round in a circle with it. So the next piece we can do is this one here. So if I just finger press that back, because I do really want to iron this, but I'll just get going and then you'll be able to see. So the next one we're going to put across here, right sides together. So let's just get a piece. So it doesn't matter about what width fabric you're bringing up. So this time this is about 1 1/4 inch. That's probably 1.5 inches. And I'm just going to lay it over the top. Okay. So if you can see, I'll just move that back a second. So all I've done is laid it over the top of this one nicely. So like I said, we need to iron it. And I've gone over the top, and I've kind of done raw edge to raw edge here. And that's the end of the seam. And again, you could mark it. So that if I get a pin, that's the end of your seam there. Okay. And so you just really want to go up to the end, and that's a funny old shape, but you'll see once you start stitching that you will cover it, and it's not the end of the world if you don't, all right? And you can just keep having a little sneaky peek, and if you want to, just pop a pin in there where the end of that seam is, but because that's on an angle, you just want to go a little bit further, okay? And then the whole piece is going over the top of my first piece that I stitched, and I flipped back. Okay, happy? So now I'm going to go, I'm going to make sure this is all parallel, so it's all beautifully straight and flat, and then I'm going to start here, and I'm going to stitch all the way down here to just beyond the pin. All right, so we'll do that now. And like I say, make sure it's absolutely parallel with the raw edge, not with this piece of fabric here. We're not interested in that bit. We're only interested in the raw edge of this, which is tucked under here, okay? So we're just coming all the way along. And the thread's got tied up, hold on. That's it. And so like I say, we're just going to have a little look under there, and I need to come up to about here. But don't worry if you go over. Right, please don't fret about that. And then we're just going to pull that out again. Now I've got a thread cutter here, so I will do that as I go along. And then what you're doing is folding that piece back, okay, and you're going to press it. Now do you see underneath here we've got all this rubbish? Well, we're going to cut that off, okay? I'm just going to pop and get my scissors. They're not that much bigger. But but bigger than the other ones. So I'm just going to trim that off. Okay. Which means that when I fold that back, it's beautifully neat. Okay, now I'm going to do the next one because this is a tricky angle as well, and you may not understand quite how to do that bit. To be honest, once you've started, you will work it out. It's quite easy, really. So look, I'm going to finger press it. Like I say, I'm going to get my iron on all this in a second, and I'll have a chat to you at the front. So now I've folded it back. So this raw edge is the one that we're going to follow again now. Or that's the one we're going to follow. So ignore this. Just make sure that it's nice and flat. You can pin it if you want to. Let's put one in. Let's do it. Just make sure you don't stitch over it. In fact, let's just move it down so I don't want to break another needle. So yeah, so you can, if you haven't pressed it with your iron, then you can just pin it down. But bear in mind, we're going to be machining from here, from there, across here, okay? And to be perfectly honest, I would have preferred to have started from this end and going forward, and perhaps I should have gone round that way. But it doesn't really matter, it really doesn't. But as long as you get your edge of your next fabric parallel with this raw edge, ignore that bit, you're just going to start stitching from up here somewhere. Your fabric will tell you almost what to do. So let's get a nice big piece, make it interesting. So there's our next piece, nice big size. So we're going to do raw edge again. So you want to make sure, and it's right size to right size, you want to make sure that your next piece goes right over the fabric that you've just stitched. Can you see how that goes right over? And you're going to start stitching. Like I say, I should have started the other way around, but not to worry. You want to start from here and then end up going like this. And I can't even flip that to make it work. So at some point I'm going to turn it. So let's move that pin out of the way in case I stitch over it. And so I'm going to actually stitch from this line here, so it's sort of way back over there. Okay, so let's do that. And I'm following, this is the raw edge here. Okay, so that's what I've lined this fabric up with, so that's absolutely parallel to that. Just look for your end, so my end is there, and I will use my scissors to cut that. If you haven't got a machine that does that, it's not the end of the world. So there we are, so that's cut that, and then all I need to do is fold that piece back. Okay, and that's made a lovely, lovely start to our patchwork. And obviously I need to cut all this rubbish away here. We don't need any of that now because we've machined over the top of it. And some of this will be machined down, but so don't worry about it. Just snip away what you can. And then this can go over the top. Do you see what I mean about top stitching? So every one of these seams can be top stitched. So this one, we're just going to trim some of this away. Okay, and then we're going to do this bit here. In fact, oh no, I will stick with what I'm doing. So just choose another one of your fabrics. Let's have a look. And a thinner piece, I think. Or no, oh yeah, here we go. A thin piece. So there's a thin piece of the next piece of fabric. And you see how I'm mixing it all up. So this is our raw edge. So we're going to put our fabric parallel with that, you know, right sides together and absolutely on top of it. You can just see the edge of it there, can't you? So absolutely on the money. And you can see also that my fabric, let's just move it a little bit, my fabric is going way over the edge of the piece that I've just stitched. And do you see, well, this is why a nice iron, because this is starting to flip now because it's got the seams underneath. It's making it want to flip up. And some fabrics don't mind finger pressing and some don't. So that's that one. So again, we're just going to start from the outer edge. It's ever so bright in here, but that's just, I think I haven't threaded my bobbin right. Oh my goodness. So I'm just going to look, can you see where the edge of that seam is there? So I'm taking it just a little bit beyond there. In fact, let me use my cutter. And we'll just trim some of this away. There we go. And then what you're going to do then is what you did before was to finger press that, fold it over, but obviously we need to get rid of some of this here, okay? So let's just get our scissors in there and just trim it away. Let's just do that so you can see. There we go. And then push it, finger press it, make it nice and neat. So now we've got this little tiny seam here. So that's the next one we do. We're nearly round to the beginning again. So let's choose another piece of fabric. Oh, we've got some gorgeous batik here. I don't think this one has. Some batiks do have a right or wrong, and they're not. If they're good, they're not supposed to. Right, because this is a nice wide fabric, I want you to go way over that seam, just to make sure. And again, the actual raw edge is here. Okay, so this is my line that I'm following. I'm ignoring anything here. I'm just following this line here. So my fabric is sitting right on top of that raw edge. And I'm going up to the end, and I'm just going to cut my fabric. Cut my fabric as well in a minute. So just lift that up. So what you can see is when we push that back, you can see that sits lovely over the top. And then all you're going to do is just, well, let me get the other scissors, that's it, is just trim that away. Don't be too worried about being precise with that. And then you're just going to trim this piece away as well. So this is how you build up the layers. So we're right back to the beginning now. And normally this would take you a couple of minutes to do, but obviously I'm taking my time so you can see. Now I don't have 4, 5. I needed 6 different colours, but it's not essential. And I'm going to repeat one of the colours now. I particularly like this one. So I'm going to, even though it's just there, I'm going to repeat it here. It's a nice thick piece as well. And I'm going to take it right across. So I want you to see, this is my raw edge. Okay. So my piece of fabric is going to go right over the top of that lot. And my guide is my raw edge here. So I'm ignoring this and I'm ignoring that. And I'm going parallel with this. Okay, so it's just that bit that I'm using as my guide, and I'm going to start right over here. So my stitching starts right over here. Okay, and I'm going to stitch all the way along, all the way along, all the way along to here. And then I've done a whole round. So let's see what that looks like. So like I say, do press in between each layers, and although I said I was going to, I haven't yet, but I will in a minute. So again, this is the piece that's absolutely parallel on the raw edge. So just make sure everything is lovely and flat. And just go over that last bit there and just cut it. That's smashing. There we go. So that's our last little bit done. And I'm just going to trim this off. Okay. And I know I've got to trim this bit and this bit, but let's just have a quick look and see what that looks like. So it's quite busy. It's going to be quite a busy piece of patchwork. I quite like that actually. So I'm just following the line of that last raw edge, and we'll get that soon put together. So the other thing I want to do is, or rather the next thing I want to do is, I want to neaten all this up and cut it down just a wee bit. So we started at 18.5 by 14.5, and I'll probably take it down to approximately 18 by 14. So it's just a case of trimming it all down so it's lovely and neat and tidy. Only because by the time you've stitched all these things and you've pressed them, they tend to sort of move about a bit. So it's just be a case of straightening it out. I was going to say square it out, but we're not squaring up as such, are we? We're just sort of straightening it out. Right, so that's done. So it didn't take long, did it? I'm going to move the machine just for a moment. Okay, so I'm going to put all these bits on the floor. I will pick them up. Well, I will, because nobody else does. So I just iron that last little bit just there. That's it. And last night, do you remember I just trimmed it out with the scissors because I wanted to show you how it looks, because at the minute, can you see, it's raggedy. And if I turn it around that way, you can see the shape of the calico, but you can also see it's quite raggedy. So we just need to sort of neaten that up. So I've got a mat here. I'll use work stuff. I try to avoid work stuff when I'm not working. It's not always easy. I'll just switch my iron off. I was going to ask you to remind me about my iron, because last night I went to bed and the iron was still switched on, but there was something in my head that said, did you check the iron? So I got up again and checked, and it was definitely on. So, right, so I'm just going to sort of level this up. Not sure how I'm going to get on sitting down. Now I'm using quite a small, well, I'm using a 6x12 ruler. This is quite a big design, so if you've got a larger ruler, a 6x24, I have somewhere, it's just right over there. Use a 6x24 and use a bigger mat. So now I'm just going to work my way along. So I'm going to do a little bit at a time. And I think what I'll do is I'll probably cut from the back. I'll trim these off here, but then I'll cut from the back because I can't see what I'm doing. I'll turn this over. Okay. So you can see what a difference it makes. I've got a line now to follow where I didn't before. So let's just trim that away, and don't forget you can move your ruler down. And also don't forget, even though this is an A3 mat, you can have it, like I've got it lengthways on my desk there. I think you can just about see. So don't forget you can move it around. Let's just get that square. In fact, I'll just cut as I think, and then I'll go back. And it's just a case of trimming it, getting it so it's the sides are nice and straight. Right, so that's not too bad. Now I'm going to just quickly whiz around. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put one of the black lines on my ruler across this one edge here, and that way as I go round, hopefully it will square it up not too bad. You can use your mat if you want to, but I find this just as easy. And again, we'll just keep moving it. Just want to take a little bit off because that's a wriggly line there. To be honest, once you when you put the back on your cushion, it'll straighten up, not too bad. I also find that when you put the bobble trim on, it also distorts it a little bit anyway as well. So it's a bit stretchy, my bobble trim. I think I'm probably about there. I'm fairly happy with that. Let's have a look. A little bit out. So let's just trim that. Just make sure your ruler stays true. Right, good. So there we are. So it's quite weird, isn't it, how that's so different to the first one I did. This looks quite different to yours that you've done already. And like I said, I think it's just the angle of where you put things, of where you put that central design. because it lends itself to those different shapes. But I do like it off centre. You might not. You might want to start right in the middle. It's entirely up to you, or to one side but in the middle. But I quite liked it that it was a bit quirky and just up that corner there. I really like that. When I do my free motion embroidery, which we're going to do now, and I'll talk you through what I did again. You're supposed to use a different sort of thread in the bobbin on the machine. To be honest, I'm a really lazy stitcher, in as much that if I've got a full bobbin there, and if it's a neutral colour, I'll stick with it. If I start bringing that colour through to the front, then I might start using something like a bobbin fill, which is a very fine thread, or I'll loosen the tension on the top. Never touch the tension on your bobbin, folks. Never, never, never. There's no need. But I'd loosen the tension off, which I'm going to do anyway. So just a little bit of a recap with this. There's lots of different ways of hooping up things, and I don't want you to get worried about it. The way I like to do it is using a dissolvable film like this, which is easily available. It's actually an iron away dissolvable film, and it's very, very strong, and it means that you don't really have to stabilise your fabric if you're using this film. However, what we're doing is making a 3D object. We're making a dragonfly, which the wings and it's only the middle of the body that's attached to the cushion, and all the rest is floating, so it needs to be strong. So I put my H250 on the back of my fabric, so all my bits of fabric are placed on this piece of H250, and this is the glue side here, fabric on the top, and then I just pop the whole lot in a hoop, and that's just been put on with stick and spray. But to be honest, I mean, I've caught a lot of it in the hoop itself, and that would be enough to hold it still. And at the end of the day, if I wanted to, I could have a bigger piece of H250, and that would sit in the hoop anyway. Okay, so it's 6 2/3 really, and I would say to you, it's one of those things that you kind of have to practice and get used to, and have your own idea of what suits you and what suits the machine as well, because these machines can be pretty fickle. They're also very fickle when it comes to gold thread, well, mine is. So loosen your tension off a little bit. If I can remember how to do that on this machine. That's not it. So yeah, so I'm just going to loosen that tension. I think is that right? Oh, that's good. So it was on 4.5, I think. I've taken it down to 3.5. See how we get on. But the first thing I'm going to do is actually use an ordinary thread. So I'm not going to use my gold just yet. So I've got a couple of reels of gold. So this is Madeira. It's called heavy metal. Try that in your machine if you want to. Some machines like it, some machines don't. And Diana, who's on our Facebook page, she's embroidered a lot with gold thread, and she can give you tons of advice on different ways of using a metallic thread. I kind of just go with what I know. And then this is a metallic thread from, oh gosh, Somac, S-O-M-A-C. And actually my machine quite likes this, and I've never had a metallic thread that it's like, so I'm really quite pleased with it. So we're going to give that a go. I've also got some variegated thread here, and this is just your regular Gutterman. Nothing special about it at all, apart from the fact it's variegated. And it's kind of tones of yellows, oranges, tanny colours. Let me show you on this camera here. Let's have a look. So you can see, gosh, my screen's so dusty I can hardly see. So you can see that it's quite a variegated thread, and that's what I'm going to use first of all. So with that, you don't really need to alter the tension because it's just the same as the thread that you would use regularly. To see how you get on. With machine free motion embroidery, once you cracked it, once you've been brave, if you like, and cracked it, you will find that you'll want to do free motion quite a lot. It's a lovely, lovely thing to do, and all machines are capable of doing it. Right, so feed dogs down. If you don't have feed dogs down, you might have a plate to go over the top to stop your feed dogs from moving. I don't like those plates, and all I would do is reduce my stitch length down to 0 and not put the plate on, and you should be fine. So all we're going to do is we're going to do the outline of all the little pieces. So if we have a quick look here, you can see I've drawn my shapes on. I drew around the patterns yesterday, and I've got a right and a left. I've flipped them, so hopefully I've done that right, and we've got a right and a left, and the same with the bottom wings, and the same with the bottom. Oh no, I've only got one piece, but I've drawn it on. Okay, so we're good to go. Now I'm just going to pop this under machine. I'm going to just bring my camera right in here, so forgive me for wriggling around just for a moment, and I'm going to see if you can. Let's just get my mat out of the way. Oops, sorry guys. Because I want you to see what I'm doing. Okay, I think that's not bad. I'm happy with that. Are you happy with that? Good. Oh Sheila, your embroidery machine doesn't like metallic thread. You can buy gadgets that actually will put like a silicone drop on a little pad that you can run your thread through. That I find really helps. So look, all I'm going to do is put my needle down and bring my thread up. That is the correct way. Now I've told you that I'm just using regular thread on the bottom here, okay? You perhaps wouldn't want to do that. Do you know what? Life's for living. So I'm just going to do it because I've got that in my bobbin. We've got the free motion going because I've got the open-toed foot. I've changed it and I've put that on the machine. I've dropped my feed dogs, lifted up my thread from the bottom, and we're just good to go now. So I'm going to try and keep my hands out of the way, okay? And then it's just a case of drawing with the stitches, and it really. I'm going to just snip my thread so they're out of the way. You could. Gosh, do all sorts of things, tie these off and do all sorts of rubbish, but just enjoy the process. I'm not belittling free motion, but sometimes I think I just want you to enjoy the process. So now I'm just going around the body of the dragonfly. You do need a bit of a steady hand, but what you're doing, you're using the hoop to help you move the whole piece of fabric around. If your hoop is in the way of the throat of your machine or the back of the machine, then just move it round. There's no rules to say you have to keep it just there. So again, all you're doing now, we're on row 2 now. I'm going to move it because for me, I like it this way round. So we're just going to do a few little rows. We're going to do all of the thread work first. In other words, all of this variegated thread work we're going to do first, and then I'll go in with the gold, and then once we've done that, we can cut the dragonfly away and then assemble it onto our cushion front. And I'm just going to just machine through it just to hold it. So again, we're on row 3, which is probably about, let's call it a day with that. You might want to do all 3 layers. So now all I'm going to do is kind of just go from one side to another. So it looks, I don't know, not reptilian. How can it be reptilian? But so it's kind of filled in, I suppose. Reptilian, where did I get that from? So yeah, just take your time. Don't worry about your stitch length. because it does depend on how fast you're going, and it does depend on how quickly you move your fabric. So now we've come up to the body, I'm just going to make that obvious that that's the body. And then I might do some swirls on here. I don't know what I'm doing really, just having fun. And when I come up to where the eyes are, I'm just going to make that obvious that they're eyes. Because they're quite big eyes, don't they, dragonflies? So I'm just making that obvious. And then I think I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to go back down the tail again, crisscrossing across the tail. I'm literally hardly moving my hoop at all. It's just a lovely gentle process. There we go. So now we're down to the bottom of the tail. And I'll fill that in a little bit, just to make it look a little different. And obviously if you've used a heat erasable pen, then all of these lines will come out. Okay, so I'm just going to cut my thread. It's handy if you have got a thread cutter because it makes everything so neat and tidy. And again, you might want to just start off again, pull your thread through. I've only got a little tiny tail because I've cut my thread. And again, you're just going to go along the edge. Again, cut your tail so it keeps nice and neat. Don't worry about the fact that you think because we're cutting so close that it's going to come undone, but it doesn't matter because you're going to go over this a few times. So all you're doing here is the outline of the lower wing. And I probably want to come in a wee bit because I drew this from my pattern. It's slightly bigger than I would have liked. So I'm only going to go around twice, but ideally I'd want you to go around 3 times. With the variegated thread, it's lovely because you'll have those different colours coming through. And so now we're coming to where the bottom of the wing's going to be. This is where it joins the body. This is the bottom of the wing. So I'm just going to kind of do some swirls. We did this before with the napkin ring, and so I'm just going to come back on myself. I'm going to go up to where the wing attaches to the body. And I'm just going to do some free motion lines. I'm just going to speed up a little bit, otherwise we'll be here all day. I don't necessarily want you to do this, because if you're not careful you can easily break a needle now, because you're pulling against the stitching as the machine is stitching, and you could, if you're not going fast enough, you could break a thread. So just be aware. So look at that, that's really, really nice. I'm loving what I'm seeing. And of course, you can just carry on and carry on and carry on. And I have to say, you will do that. You will want to do more, I promise. Oh, there's some thread in my needle. Because it's such a lovely, lovely thing to sit and do. So I'm sorry you're going to get my hand in the way now. So just thread the needle. Okay. Oh, that's it. So I'm just jumping across to the other wing. So don't forget we're opposite to what we did. So the body part's going to be here, where it attaches to the body, I should say, not the body part. Let's get so far and just trim that end. And we trim it because otherwise all of that thread gets caught up underneath, on top, and it can look quite unsightly. So again, we'll just go a little bit faster. So what you're doing, you're kind of doing an outline like you would with a drawing and a pen, except you're doing it with stitch. And it's just absolutely super. And I'm just going to go around there a little bit and come back on myself. So I need to do my swirly bit again. So I'm literally coming round and then going into the centre, back on myself, and then I want to travel up the side of the wing. And we're going to do those lines again. So I'm going to speed up, but I don't, like I say, I only want you to do this if you're really comfortable with it. If you've ever, sometimes I post things from a lady called Amanda Hartland on my other page, and she paints pictures with thread, and she does all sorts. She does animals and houses, and oh, she does the most amazing work. And I'm going to be meeting her at the NEC next week, so I'm really happy about that. So again, just cut your thread off. Can you see how it looks? It's coming along nicely, isn't it? So we've just got these two to do now. I can't speed it up, so we just have to go through the pain barrier of doing all this, and then we'll do the gold. So, oh, tiny little tail, do you see? You might not be able to see it. So let that thread go, otherwise it won't catch. There we go. So let's just cut that thread. Oops, very sharp scissors. Okay, here we go. So again, ideally, you're going to do 3 rows around your body parts, your wings, and oops, I've gone off, right off there, look at that. I'm not worried, because it is a piece of nature after all. So with this part, this is the upper wing, and you're going to see more of this than the lower wing, so it's nice to do a little bit of extra. So again, we're going to do a lovely swirl, just round and round. Doesn't have to be the perfect circle, by the way. And then come back on yourself, just because I think it looks interesting. Come back up here. So this is where we're going to do a little bit more, and I'm just going to speed up. Are you all feeling brave that you'll do this? I'd like to see them. I really, truly would like to see some made. Even if you don't do the cushion and you just do the dragonfly. Because at some point, you see, we could actually make a picture. What do you think? Now that's looking really spectacular. And half the thing is because it's variegated thread. So there we are. Let's just, I'm going to hold that thread. Oops, let's get it right. That's it, let's caught that nicely. So don't be in too much of a hurry. Make sure that first thread is caught. Just trim it off. Here we go, round here again. I'm putting you to sleep. Now look, my hoop is now banging up against the throat of my machine, so I'm just going to move that around. That's the great thing about using a hoop, you can just move it. And you've got something, you see, because we've got these bits here, we've got something to hold on to. It's a bit like the steering wheel of a car, you've got like more control. Well, I think you've got more control over what you're doing. Let's go round again, because there's quite a light coloured thread just there. So again, so we'll just do our circle. And this might be completely opposite to the other one, but it doesn't matter. It's called artistic license. and then just come back to here. I'm just going to move my hoop a little bit, and we're just going to do those long stitches. Now if you were to be stitching a flower, this would be the centre of the flower, where the colour changes from the centre to the outside. Don't be afraid of it, and now, like I say, the variegated thread really does make a difference. So we'll just cut that off there. There we go. So if I just bring this out, let's bring it, I don't want to sort of blur your vision any. Let's just tip it up a little bit. So can you see how that looks? Let's get it so you can see. And then if I bring this over, you can see how the lower wings look, and then the body. You can see where I just did that sort of wriggly line and filled in the tail. Do you remember me saying? Okay. So I don't really want to move that for a moment. So look, I'm going to take my, let's go on the overhead so you can see. I'm going to take my pieces out of the ring now, okay? And obviously you can unscrew the screw and do it properly. Or you can do what I've just done and just yank it out. Let's put that on the floor. So now we've got all these pieces and it's just a case of cutting. Now don't forget, we've still got that, like that plastic film on the back, and the iron will actually melt that away. Excuse me. You can use paper, you know, just you can buy special paper that you can put underneath as well. And all it's for is for keeping the fabric absolutely stable when you're stitching. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this. This just happens to be my particular favourite. It's, like I say, it's personal choice, isn't it? So what I'm doing is I'm cutting around where I've stitched, so just on the outside of where I've been stitching. So I'm a bit of a funny angle. I'm hoping I'm trying not to cut the threads, and also I wouldn't worry about too much about. Let's see if I can come in a bit more. I wouldn't worry too much about going right up to the threads, the stitches, because all this is going to fray. I mean, I could neaten that up, but I don't want to. I just want to keep it as it is. But there's two little wings done, so we'll put those there. And then we've got the body. So again, just follow your line of stitches, and if it's a little bit wriggly like mine is, that's fine. We're making a dragonfly, and he's fish and chips. He's had his supper, isn't he? So he might have a bit of a wriggly tummy. Well, that's his tail, but you know what I'm saying. So let's have a look. So just around there, his tail. So don't forget, I've still got that plastic on the back. I'll put that in my heap. And now, like I say, it just irons away. So let me just cut this down a bit so we've got all these bits going on. Look quite nice, they look like fish, don't they? Goldfish. It's quite nice to have the pattern fabric underneath. And you could have used pink thread because you got the pink on the fabric. So there's lots of different things that you could do. So let's just trim it up. So we're nearly done. And then it'd be just a case of stitching the body and the wings together. You could glue them, like I said yesterday, you could glue them. You don't have to stitch anything if you don't want to. And so there we are. So we've got all our pieces. So if we pop the, well, let's do the wings first. So bottom wings first. So he's quite a nice size, isn't he? Quite a nice size. And then this one goes directly over the top. And then this one goes there. Like that. Line them all up. That's it. Stay. And then the body just goes on the top like that. He looks quite cute, doesn't he? But now we've got to machine it. Now, I'll be honest with you, I literally just do a back and forth stitch. Because I'm going to use cream, that might show. I should have perhaps left my variegated in, but even so, I think that'll be fine. And I'm just going to literally stitch all these pieces together. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually I'm going to stitch all 4 wings together. I'm just going to do back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to hold. I'm going to put my body over the top like that, and then just do 1 or 2 little stitches right in the centre just to hold him down. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do now. So let's get it on the machine. And it's just a case of being a bit brave with it. So I'm going to put the left hand wings together, put the needle in, and then I know they're not going anywhere. And lead dogs up. And then I'm just going to then get my bottom wings and put them very near. So this is where I need my scissors just to keep them in line and make sure they go together at the same time. It's not always possible, but there we go. I'm happy with that. So I turn it all round. At the moment it's just held together with 1 little stitch. So now I'm just going to reinforce what I've done. I'm going to come back on myself. And I go back. Right, now we're cooking on gas. So now that I've joined them, I'm just going backwards and forwards, and I'm kind of making a fabric with my thread. So my wings are now really firmly stitched together. I'm just taking that out of my machine. So now I'm going to put my body over the top. In fact, I will break those threads. I wasn't going to, but I will. So I'm putting my body over the top. Sounds a bit bad, doesn't it? And I'm just going to stitch my body in place. There we go. Again, a few backwards and forward stitches. And I might just go across as well. In fact, I might just move that. Yeah, I'll show you what I've done in a sec. Okay, that's cool. I'm happy with that. And of course, you can make it sort of put the body at a quirky angle. Right, we're nearly coming to the end of the hour, so I'll talk you through the rest of what you're going to do. But I do feel that was nice to cover that little bit, because I think you might make a few of those. Once you've had one little go, you'll probably enjoy it so much that you'll probably make a few more. Right, so let's go on the overhead. So there's my cushion. There we go. I'll fill the screen. There we go. That's what that is. So there's my butterfly. He's a nice size, and he can be put there. So he's all stitched together, and I love him. I think I'm going to try and put some gold work on him, because I think the gold will really lift him. And all I'm going to do is attach him just there, just in the centre of the body. I'm just going to run my machine over the entire lot again and just hold him in place. And then he'll be that sort of 3D beautiful dragonfly that will go on your piece of work. And what I can do is I'll put a pin through him, so I can hold it up and I can show you. And of course all these, if you did a double layer of the H250, his wings would be even more stiffened. So what do you think? Is he staying upright? I can't see. Right, so once you've stitched it on, I want you to stitch it on now, because this is when you're going to put the cushion together. So the next thing you're going to do is to get your bobble trim. If you decide to use a bobble trim, you might not want to. It's not everybody's cup of tea, is it? And all you're going to do, once you've found the end, is you're going to top stitch this in place. So this is your bobble trim, and you're going to top stitch it so the bobbles are on the edge. Now this is quite stretchy, so be aware not to stretch it. So you're going to stitch it so the bobbles are facing in. So let's just show you on this little corner up here. So you're going to stitch it so it looks like that, okay? And you're going to top stitch it in place right down the centre of that piece of like cording, the ribbon. And you'll start just a little way away from a corner, okay? And you're just going to top stitch that in place, and you'll take it all the way around your cushion. And that's the first thing you do. You don't touch the back or anything like that. So you're going to go all the way around your cushion front, okay? And then all you're going to do when you come up to the top here, you're just going to overlap those two pieces. So wherever those two pieces end, once you come round, you just overlap them. You don't have to do anything fancy. And then all you're going to do is the back. And the back is really simple. Let me just bring the back in. In fact, let me leave that there because it's a nice backdrop. With the back, you've got two pieces that are way too big. Okay, they're certainly too wide. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn these edges here in by 1/4 inch, then 1/4 inch again. And the same with this one here, and then put them over the top. And then you'll do right sides together with your cushion, okay? And then what you'll do is pin all the way around, so make sure that you pin here and here to hold your pieces of your overlap in place. So here and here, and here and here, and then pin all the way around. And then I want you to stitch the two layers together, but from that side, so from your cushion side. So I could actually move this along a wee bit. Because you've straightened this side up, haven't you? This is all perfect. So it means that if you stitch your 1/4 inch or so on this side, you're going to follow that cut edge. Don't worry that this is bigger. Don't worry that this side here and this side here is wider. That's intentional, okay? Because you try stitching a cushion together where back and front is absolutely identical. It's not easy. So I always make the back bigger than the front, and then it's easy to stitch together, okay? So that's that really. I didn't cover the stitching of the back, but I think you can probably get that. I think you're happy with that. It's fairly simple, I think. What I definitely wanted to show you was to making first of all, so you can see what my cushion ended up like. Also stitching that dragonfly, which is just adorable. I love him. We've talked about putting the bobble trim on. So what I'll do sometime tomorrow is finish mine off and then post a picture in the group, and you can scrutinise it and see what you think. So there we are. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you again in the next few days.